What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Chase's Sports News. I am Chase Coburn here today. The college basketball conference tournaments are right around the corner. A few have already started. A few are about to start. We have a few starting next week. But the better way of putting it, we're less than 2 weeks away from Selection Sunday. It's one of the best times of the entire year here to talk about college basketball. We're going to break down 3 hot takes that I currently have about some of the more controversial and some of the more well-known teams in college basketball. Again, some of them may be some real hot takes. But I'm excited to break it all down for you today. And plus, as kind of a spoiler alert, one of them does have to do with Miami of Ohio and RedHawks fans. You might want to listen up because you're not going to like it. Hope you guys do enjoy. Please subscribe, follow, share. Do what you need to do here to stay in touch with the content. We appreciate the support, and we have some really cool things happening for the conference tournaments and for March Madness you guys aren't going to want to miss. So again, please subscribe, please follow, please make sure that you are sticking up with the content, making sure you're staying up with the content, and making sure you guys are enjoying it. All right, you guys see it on the screen here. I am tired of the Miami of Ohio facade. I am tired of the fraud that is Miami of Ohio. And I guess that depends on how you classify them. For them to be ranked currently, right now, at the time of this recording, 19th in the AP poll, which is ahead of Arkansas, ahead of St. Mary's, and 1 spot behind the St. John's Red Storm. What are we doing here, folks? Miami of Ohio has been one of the more controversial teams in college basketball all season long. They're 30-0. Mazel tov. I'm not trying to diminish their success at all. But personally, I value the best teams over the most deserving. College football fans, listen up. I'm someone who says, I don't care about the G5 teams. They can have their own tournament. They don't belong in the college football playoff. And even though college basketball is 68 teams, which is far more extrapolated than just 12 teams in the college football playoff, I like to get the best teams, not the most deserving teams or the best stories. I just think this Miami of Ohio team is way too overhyped. And I understand that there is a lot of emotion on either side. But for those people who genuinely believe that Miami of Ohio has displayed a product this year that is actually among the best in college basketball, for those who believe that they should be a 7th seed or a 6th seed or an 8th seed, what game have you been watching? Because I know people say win-loss is all that matters. Correct. In pro sports, yes. But in college, you need to weigh schedules and you need to understand that not every win is worth the same. Of course, the schedule is going to be the main argument. It's 285th ranked on KenPom. It's actually a lot easier by some other metrics. But the main pushback I've heard from Miami of Ohio fans, which is valid, is that it's hard for them to schedule games. And again, I understand that because when you're a top mid-major, I cover Fairfield women's basketball. They deal with a similar issue. When you're a top mid-major, you're a good enough team that you can upset the power schools, but you're not a good enough team to where you're too bad to where if you lose as a power conference, it's not a good loss on your resume. So it's very tough for them to schedule games, and I get that. But if they were at least dominating the bad teams, I would get it. But they're not even top 5 in point differential in all of college basketball, and they're playing in the MAC. Sure, they're winning, but it's a 2-point win over UMass. Last night, what I watched, it's a 2-point win over Toledo. The defense looked absolutely terrible. It's barely sneaking it out of Western Michigan. It's a 3-point win over Akron. And again, not even top 5 in point differential. So if they were winning their games by 25 points on average and they were killing everybody, and it wasn't even a contest, and it looked like it was men against boys, sure, I'd be willing to have a different discussion. But if you're barely cruising by with wins, I have a very hard time putting you in that echelon. If you actually look at some true metrics that are very good determining factors of how great a team you are, they're 86th in Basketball Power Index. They're 87th in KenPom. And the irony is that by these metrics, they're not even the best team in the MAC. Akron is. And I actually think Akron is going to go and win the conference tournament. The analytics actually say that there's a less than 50% chance that Miami of Ohio wins the Mid-Atlantic Conference. And for some reason, a team that we don't even know is going to win the MAC, we think should deserve an at-large bid into the NCAA tournament. I don't get that to me. They're not a top team in the country. If they lose the MAC, I have a hard time rewarding a conference as a 2-bid league that hasn't had 2 bids since 1999. We're not partying like it's 1999. We're looking back to 1999. That's a long time. That was 27 years ago. 27 years ago. If you need to put them in because the committee needs to stay consistent and they say every single school with 4 losses or less has been in, even if they don't win their conference, if you're trying to stay consistent, that's fine. Put them in the first 4. Even if they win the MAC, I'm not putting them higher than a 10 seed. Make them earn it. Because again, 30-0, that's all I hear, undefeated. You can't value those wins like Ohio State's wins. You can't value those wins like Seton Hall's wins. Seton Hall's taken UConn toe-to-toe at UConn. There's a big difference there. And right now, a lot of people think Miami of Ohio would deserve to be in over Seton Hall. I bet you if Seton Hall and Miami of Ohio faced each other right now, it would be Seton Hall that would actually win that game, even at Miami of Ohio. That's why they're 51st in KenPom. And that's why they're much higher in BPI as well. And so again, I know these advanced metrics don't tell the whole story. They don't kind of encompass the whole picture of this Miami of Ohio story, but it is a great indicator that this team is benefiting from a very, very easy schedule. And if they were in a tough conference, this wouldn't even be a conversation. The irony, I actually think, with this Miami of Ohio team, the irony is that they would actually be a team that I would love to pick in March if they were an 11th seed or a 12th seed to go and make an upset. Forget the record for a second. One of the highest scoring offenses in the country, one of the best, most efficient shooting teams in the country. They have a ton of playmakers on the perimeter. They move the ball really, really well. That's the type of team I like to pick in March to pull off an upset. But there's a big difference between teams I like to pick to pull off upsets and then teams that I actually think are going to be top 25 in the country and teams that I think deserve to have an at-large bid. I love the High Points and I love the McNeeses and I love the Drakes every single year because, again, they usually match up really well. And if Miami of Ohio gets a favorable matchup, they can go and make a run to the Sweet 16. For me, that doesn't say that they're a great team. It just shows that they have a right matchup. Right? They're the type of team that I actually love picking in March. That's the irony. But no, are they a top 25 team in the country? Do they deserve to be a 7th seed? Do they deserve to be an at-large if they lose a game or possibly 2 in the MAC? No, let's not twist this. They're not a great college basketball team. They're a great story. And once people realize that, I think they'll have a lot. I think people need to start realizing that. Because, again, this Miami of Ohio team is not at the level of a Seton Hall or an Ohio State. And if you have one of the power schools that has played better competition this year and has played better against that better competition, if you don't put them in because of the facade that is Miami of Ohio, I'm going to be very, very frustrated with the committee. So, again, all due respect, absolutely love the story, cheering for the RedHawks. But no, they're not a top team in the country. They're in the MAC. Let's not kid ourselves here. That is hot take number 1. And that's the most controversial, and that's why I put it first, because I knew that I'm going to get hate for this one, and I'm excited to see some of the comments and the pushback already that I am going to receive from putting Miami of Ohio as one of the bigger frauds in all college basketball. Let's talk about a team, though, that I'm really high on, and that is Duke. And this one may not be a hot take because they are number 1 in the AP poll, and they're number 1 in the coaches poll. But it feels like right now in college basketball, we have a few tiers. And the top tier is Duke, Arizona, and Michigan. The second tier is like UConn, Florida, Houston. Maybe you want to put Iowa State in there. Do you want to put Illinois in there? It's kind of like the second tier of teams that have been a little bit more inconsistent but aren't in tier 1. To me, Duke is in their own tier of college basketball teams. I don't think it's close. Right now, unless I see something different in the ACC tournament, Duke is clearly the best team in college basketball, and it is not close. Ever since they beat Michigan in Capital One Arena, I was all in. I watched a team whose defense stepped up. They held Michigan, one of the best shooting teams in the country, in terms of field goal efficiency, to 40% shooting. They made the plays when it matters most, and then they were the much better team in the paint. Again, I really love their paint presence. I think their defense has been the best in the country all year. Their paint presence has been the best in the country all year. And it was put on display in that Michigan game against, again, at the time, the number 1 team in the country. Now, Duke has obviously surpassed them, and that's my take as well. But I'm looking at a team that's won 7 games in a row. They only have 2 losses the whole year. They came by 1 point against Texas Tech, and then on the road in a rivalry game at UNC down to the final shot. Like, those are reasonable, manageable losses, understandable losses if you're trying to classify Duke in terms of being in their own tier. I'm not joking here. Cam Boozer is the best player in the country. I think he's so dominant inside. He's very physical. And I think what makes Cam Boozer such an interesting kind of wild card prospect. He could facilitate too. He could make his teammates better. You talk about the Michigan game. It was 18 points. It was 10 rebounds. It was 7 assists. And I think he facilitates better than Darren Peterson. I think he facilitates better than Darren Peterson. And that's not even his game. Better than Darren Peterson, better than AJ DeBonsa. That's not even his game. And so I think Cam Boozer is the best player in the country. I talked about those intangibles. Then you add Patrick Gungba alongside him. He's the perfect complement as one of the best rim protectors in college basketball. Plays really, really well with him in the paint. Isaiah Evans is a great scorer in the perimeter. You can't argue otherwise. And I think what makes them so fascinating is they have had one of the hardest schedules in all of college basketball, playing in the ACC, and yet they're first in college basketball in point differential. I think point differential in college basketball is a great indicator of how dominant you are. If you are a power school, and you are among the top teams in the country in point differential, that is not only showing you're a great team, that's showing you are smoking great teams. I look down the line of some of their recent results. I know Notre Dame's not a basketball score. They beat them by 44 points. They beat Syracuse by 37 points. They beat Louisville, who was ranked at the time, by 31 points. Not all of them, again, are great teams, but they're killing them. Even Virginia just recently, again, maybe in the tier 3 of contention, as a team ranked between 10 and 20 in the AP poll, they beat them by 26. They've dominated everybody. And again, I'm a huge fan of the advanced metrics. All of the advanced metrics point to Duke being a dominant team. They're the top-ranked team in BPI, Basketball Power Index, and they're the top-ranked team in KenPom. You go to BPI, they're the top defense in DPI and BPI, second in offense in BPI. Go to KenPom, top defense in KenPom, fourth best offense in KenPom. So it's very rare you could see that balanced, where, again, you clearly have the best defense in the country, but you also have an offense that can compete with the best of them and some of the best playmakers in this entire game. For me, if I'm Duke, a lot could change short between the ACC tournament and depending on their draw. If they get a really, really tough 2 seed or they get a falling 8 seed or something crazy where I feel like it's a hard matchup for them, maybe I'm not picking them to win the whole thing. But as of what I know right now, before the conference tournaments, I'm picking them to win the whole thing. They're much better than they were last year, and I think they're much better than the rest of the competition in all of college basketball. I hate to say it. I know Duke is probably the most hated team in college basketball, but let's not get this twisted. They are the best team in the entire sport, and it is not close. And last but not least, looking at another major contender, but in a different light, I don't think the Gonzaga Bulldogs are a contender. And again, this is going to contradict my arguments in the previous 2. The Basketball Power Index and the KenPom share a different story. They're 7th in Basketball Power Index. They're 11th in KenPom. So that would theoretically show that they have been a dominant team. I'm going to contradict that for a minute because nothing beats the eye test to me. And again, if you really wanted me to stick up for the eye test, I could do the same thing for Miami of Ohio and Duke. And I mentioned some of the points that I've seen just playing the games, not just the stats. But for me, I think Gonzaga may be a little flawed and a little bit fraudulent, and people just don't know it yet. Now, unlike Miami of Ohio, I will acknowledge that they have won some great games. They're 6-2 in quad 1 games. But I will say this, quad 1 is a very vague term. I don't think all of those games were really great wins. Like Santa Clara may get into the tournament. Is Santa Clara a great team? UCLA's been really inconsistent. Is UCLA a great team? I can't believe I'm saying this one. Is Kentucky a great team this year? I don't think those teams, none of them are in the AP poll. I don't think any of them are really a dominant elite group in college basketball. And I think when they have played that elite of the elite and the top of the top tier 1 contenders in college basketball, when they played Michigan on a neutral court, they were waxed by 40 points and they split with St. Mary's. And so for me, that is not a resume that indicates that you're one of the best teams in the country, especially when you add on to the fact that they lost at Portland, they barely beat Pacific, they barely beat San Diego, they barely beat Seattle U. And when I watched them, I watched that game, and I watched that game against Pacific specifically, and I just saw a team that feels like they're playing down to competition. Now, I think this is actually maybe what could hurt them. I actually think teams like Gonzaga don't, and maybe you could make this case for Miami of Ohio. I need to see it more, but for Gonzaga, who we've seen have success in previous years and make Final Fours and stuff along those lines, I think it's very tough for them. But I would rather, if I were Gonzaga, not be in that easier conference because, number one, again, any loss hurts you more. Any win doesn't help you as much. And I think, again, you're inherently, I think, just playing down to competition when for 20 games during your regular season, you are clearly playing inferior competition with maybe the exception of St. Mary's. But then I guess the argument would be, okay, maybe come March, you're going to play up to competition. But when has Gonzaga played up to competition in March? Like, if I've been watching the same game as you, I watched them in 2021 make the national championship as the clear favorite and the undefeated team and just get waxed by Baylor and not even compete on that court. For me, if you're Gonzaga, I don't think they're going to win the West Coast. Maybe they will. We'll see what happens. If somehow St. Mary's or Santa Clara gets that, I can't see them higher than a fourth seed, maybe a fifth seed. I don't think it's going to get that extreme. I'd say probably they're going to be a fourth seed in the tournament. Depending on the matchup, you're not telling me if you face a high point level offense, literally high point, if you face a team like that, or you face a team like McNeese, or you face a team like Drake, that's been there before, has experience in March, and has the intangibles of a team that could pull off an upset. You're telling me you're not even a little bit intrigued by a 13-4 upset when, again, we've seen Portland do it. We've nearly seen Pacific do it. We've nearly seen San Diego do it. And we've nearly seen Seattle U do it. So, again, I need to see the draw. I'm not going to sit here and say Gonzaga is definitely a first-round exit because, again, the disparity in college basketball is large. I need to see what seed they are and who they're playing. But until I really see it against the elite of the elite competition, I just don't see it with Gonzaga. And I think what we've seen in conference play is unless they're just playing down to competition and for some reason randomly start to play up to competition in March, they have not shown enough to be in conference play. That would suggest that they are a team that I should be able to take seriously as a contender here as we enter March Madness. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode of Chase's Sports News, breaking down some of the biggest college basketball storylines, some of my biggest takes surrounding college basketball as we enter the conference tournaments and soon to be March Madness. Again, a ton of content and coverage coming soon. I'm collaborating with my Mac Manual YouTube channel account right here. If you guys are at all interested in the other Mac, the MAAC conference for basketball, we're doing a lot of great coverage. We're going to be on site in Atlantic City for the conference tournament with credentials, with a media pass. We're really, really excited for that. Again, if you guys are at all interested in doing any of that coverage, please click the links in the description. Please collaborate with the Mac Manual, or please subscribe to the Collaborated Mac Manual YouTube channel. We would really appreciate your support as we're trying to build that up as a kind of an extra college basketball platform as well here for the quote-unquote Chase's Sports News family. And again, stay tuned. Bracket challenges, collaborative college basketball stuff, a lot of really cool things that you guys can participate in coming up soon. So again, please be sure to subscribe and follow me across all platforms so you don't miss any of those announcements. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Hope you guys have a great night, great day, whenever you guys are watching this. Signing off from Chase's Sports News, I'm your host, Chase Coburn, saying so long. And folks, it's March, and the madness is soon to begin.